How do we recover from a life we've broken? I got a comment from on a video that I did, and it was a guy who was struggling because he broke the heart of a girl that he loved so much, a young, beautiful girl, and it was completely his fault. He took complete responsibility for it. But I just wanted to make a video because my response, I kept writing and writing and writing. It was way too long to post it in the comments. And I figured this was a very important subject because when we're young, we make so many dumb mistakes. Our ego is driving the ship, and so many things we're just break people's hearts. We break our own hearts. We do all these things, and it can all be different if we just learn to connect with God and find wisdom at a younger age. Now, wisdom comes with experience, but you can put the time and effort into connecting with God. And so I'm going to read a lot of this and kind of give my commentary as I go. These are the kinds of things many of us deal with in our young adult life. They come to a head during our middle age years as the demons have corrupted us, usually in the form of ego, make such a mess of our lives that they must be dealt with. Now, as a Christian, you know that God understands we are all born sinners. This is why he sent Jesus to us, his chosen Son, to die for our sins. Jesus is the light, and we must walk through him and live through him. What does that really mean? The churches teach us a lot of things on how to worship and fellowship, and they do so many great things, but they don't teach us how to connect with God. So what does all of the Bible verses and religious texts and philosophies and wisdom, how do we extract that wisdom? What does it all really mean when applying it to our lives? For me, I never gave it much thought. I felt Jesus' touch when I was 13, much too young to have any wisdom to do anything at all about it, let alone life experience. I felt God's presence many more times in my life. It was always so comforting, and I was full of love and hope. But my ego always just took right back control, and I came crashing back to reality. What I learned, hopefully much later than most of you will, but it's never too late to learn. Even on our deathbeds, we can all be saved. The ego must be tamed, and we must form a true connection with God. You have to accept you might be wrong about literally everything. All the guilt, anxiety, and fear, it's all useless. It doesn't matter if it's a situation we brought on ourselves or just the way the cards were dealt. There's a serenity prayer they do in, I believe, a lot of AA meetings. And it says something like, the only things we can do is find the courage to change the things in life we can, and the serenity or wisdom to accept the things that we cannot change. God is the only one who can grant you true change. He can grant you that inner peace, and that is the thing that literally changes everything in your life. With inner peace, you are able to deal with the struggles, you are able to deal with every hardship and everything that is thrown your way. You must focus as much time as possible on seeking him. This means not focusing on whatever drama or heartbreak or video game or whatever that you have going on and you're obsessing with in your life. It can't just be an afterthought that we make time for whenever we cannot get around to it, or we can get around to it. Then we carry on living our lives with God still on the back burner. We have to put him first and foremost. Make time for him. You make time for the dumbest things, I bet, in life. Such waste of time, so many things that we do. So make time for God, because that's the most important thing. We reap what we sow. That means if we put God last, he'll put us on the back burner too. He'll still send us signs, but those signs won't be clear to our ego-driven mind. This is why I can't stress enough to take time alone in nature. Don't bring your dog, don't bring your friends, don't bring your family, even your loved ones. There's all time for this, and it's great to go do things with all of them, but this is time for you to worship. This is alone time. Put your ego in a cell where it belongs. You can't let him tell you, or you can let him tell you like stuff like when to get a haircut, when it's time to change your clothes or your underwear. Anything grooming and hygiene, the ego's great. We need the ego for that. He's a necessary part. That little demon works for us, and he knows some things, and that's all he's good for. Things like grooming and hygiene. From now on, your heart is in charge until you have connected with God and he begins to show you your purpose. So your ego was driving the ship, but he's in the cell now. Keep him in there as long as you can. He's going to get out. He's going to do all kinds of dumb things. Mine still does all the time. But let your heart drive until God can connect with you, because God is the heart. God is the driving force behind the heart. Your heart is love. Your heart is everything good and positive, and is not longing and jealousy. We might say things like the heart wants what the heart wants, what the heart wants, or there's crimes of passion. Those are all ego-driven things. So don't pay attention to those. Your heart wants what's pure. It's pure love. Let it drive. Let it be curious. Let it look around. Let it search the world like a child. Because what the ego wants doesn't matter in the slightest. What you want really doesn't matter in the slightest. When God tells you to do something, that is what you do, if you're smart. Because if you don't, things are going to turn out badly. He'll send you one way, and you might think this is the craziest thing in the world. Obviously you have to be sure that it's not the ego still driving. But make sure that you follow what God tells you. And I'm going to go through the process of how to connect with God and how to start hearing his message. And it's a slow process, and it takes a lot of practice. You have to treat this kind of like Tom Brady or Michael Jordan or the best of the best. If you start treating it like a scrub, you're going to get scrub results. That's just the way it is. There's nothing you can do about that. You have to seek him, and you will always reap what you sow. You always will. So you put that focus on finding God and understanding his message and doing what he wants you to do, then you will be laser focused, and you will be a professional, and you will be the best of the best, and your purpose will be so magnificent. It'll be a miracle that you wouldn't even be able to imagine. If he tells you something like you're going to live as a poor, broken man alone on the streets, you're going to do it, and you're going to be happier than you've ever been. And how do I know this? Because I've lived that way. I've been broke. I've been in pain. I've been dealing with loss and dealing with so many struggles. I've lived the life that I never would have ever chosen, even probably for my worst enemies. Although probably back in the even ego-driven days I might have, but I would not have wished this really on anyone. And I am the happiest man alive. I am so full of peace and love and joy that I know wherever God sends me is where I'm going to go. I'm going to do whatever I can to do that. If he tells me to pack up and move to California, and that's what I'll do. If he tells me to pack up and move to Alaska, that's what I'll do. Wherever, across, in India, wherever. Hopefully he doesn't, because that's going to be a big, a big move. But usually you're not going to get things that are outrageous like that. But some people will. It depends on how big your purpose really is. All of our purposes are so important, and we have no clue what they are except for this faint outline. Like, I knew I was supposed to bring people hope in their darkest times. I didn't understand that I couldn't just be funny and make people laugh and that was going to bring people happiness. No, it was a lot more than that. I was going to be dealing with people who have severe mental illnesses they're dealing with, and severe loss and depression. I mean, it's just the extremes, and I had no idea how to deal with that. I'm still learning, because God is still teaching me, because that is what He's telling me my purpose is. You always have to find exactly what He tells you, and you got to make sure that it's Him telling you this, and not your delusions, and not your ego. And if you're sure it's Him telling you this, then that's what you must do. So, with the thought in mind that you have to be like Michael Jordan or Tom Brady when dealing with God, you have to put that laser focus into it. Now I'm going to teach you how I connect. Now, this isn't the way everybody's going to do it, but this is the way that works perfectly for me, and it seems to be the way that a lot of others have been having some success with. Now, it's much too early to tell whether others will have the same results as me. You know, I kind of lucked into it, really. But I think I lucked into it because everything is a lesson, and that God was showing me exactly what to do. So to connect, you have to be alone in nature, or if you can't be out in nature because of weather or whatever, or restraints of some kind, then you do it from a quiet room where you can just listen to nothing but your thoughts and nothing but what He has to tell you. But nature is the biggest place, because nature is where He communicates the clearest. So you're going to go out alone, no dog, no friends, no family, nothing to take your focus on anything but looking at His message. So for a while, you're going to have to kind of fake it till you make it. Your heart is in charge and is full of love and curiosity. Let it be like that child in a toy store. Let it go and search every single thing that you land on, your eyes land on. You know, you'll see a tree. Maybe there's a birch tree that has an eye on it. Maybe you'll see that. Maybe you'll see a hawk land right near you and look at you and stare at you for a little while. Maybe you'll see a squirrel, or it could be literally anything. A rock, a gem, who knows? But whatever your eyes land on, whatever your focus stops on for more than a couple seconds, and you're kind of like, what is that? You know, like you take note of that. You take note of everything you see. So you're starting in nature, and you're going to ask God, you're going to tell God your story. Tell Him all your struggles, just like you would your therapist or your best friend, but tell Him even more than that. Tell Him your deepest, darkest secrets, and because He already knows them. Don't be ashamed of them, and just ask Him for guidance. Ask Him, how do I fix this life that I've broken? Can you please guide me? Don't ask Him for anything else. Don't ask Him for material things. Don't ask Him to get you back together with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or whatever. Don't ask Him for any of that stuff. Only ask Him for guidance, because He knows the way. You don't. Remember, your ego isn't driving anymore. Your heart is. And your heart is open. So your heart is open to His word. Try to find a beautiful place and kind of sit and think about what He's telling you. You can even tell Him, you know, do your worship there, have your little talk with God there. Okay, now remember, it's going to be a while. You're still faking it till you make it. You're going to be you have no experience of this at all. So don't be frustrated. Just take note of whatever catches your eye. If an animal approaches you, that is a big sign. If a tree stands out to you, like I said, the one with the eye on it, or a cool looking cypress tree that has all the little knots coming out of the ground, or whatever, or a beautiful lake and the wind hits you just right, just take note of it. Take note of all of it. If you need to bring a notepad, that's fine. Put it in your phone if you need to. Do whatever you have to if you can remember. If you have a good memory. I have the memory of a goldfish, so I sometimes have to write things down. A lot of times I have to write things down. But you take note of all of it. So then you're kind of finishing up your walk after you've asked God for guidance. You're taking note of everything you see on the way back. You get in your car, you listen to either some good music, or you listen to a podcast talking about the Bible, or it can be a comedy podcast. It can be literally anything. But then you listen to, good music for me is always the best, because art form is a great way for God to get his message through. Even atheists who have songs, and I love so many bands that are atheists or whatever, and God talks through all of them. He'll speak through anything. Remember, he spoke through the Roman soldiers that killed Jesus. He spoke through, look at the Apostle Paul. He literally tortured and killed Christians, and then he was the one who was chosen to start the entire church. You never know. When they say God works in mysterious ways, that's the understatement of the, millennia, or whatever is bigger than that. You just have to always be focused, and you're playing detective. You're finding any little clues that might lead to whatever message he's sending you. So you're doing this, and you're taking note all through the day. And this is your new hobby. You're going to be taking note of anything that captures your attention. Like I said, song lyrics, movie lines. If the clock is all the same number, and stray thoughts are a big one. Stray thoughts are a very powerful one. And it keeps your mind going to different things, and these things you want to take note of too. Maybe you're thinking about the Egyptian pyramids, or an inspiring phrase that you've heard that keeps popping into your mind. It could be literally anything, as long as it's not ego-driven, and you have to make sure it takes some time to learn what is and what isn't ego-driven too. As long as it's not ego-driven, take note. Then finally, when you get a chance, hopefully you have it at least sometime every night, but if you don't, just take time every couple nights or something. Remember, you need to make time for this. This is very important. Try to unpack all the things that you've taken note of. So you have all these things. How do they fit into your life? How do they fit into what you think God is trying to tell you? Do they relate to each other? Do they relate to a struggle you're going through right now? Anything like that, you have to kind of put together. It's like a puzzle you're putting together. You're doing that detective work, and you're getting all the clues because you're trying to solve the case. In this case, it's not a crime, but it's an actual message from God. And you're going to, at first, it's maybe going to be a jumbled mess. And maybe you won't think of anything that it means. But maybe try to keep a journal and write all these things down, and then put the pieces together. Now, like I said, you have to have patience. Some of you are going to pick this up a lot quicker than others if you try it. Hopefully some of you will try it, because it really is a powerful way of hearing God's message. Now, for me, I told you I have the memory of a goldfish, and I'm a big dumb idiot, so I was oblivious to so many things. But I did start letting my heart drive a lot more. It wasn't driving all the time, for sure. And it still doesn't drive all the time as much as I needed to. And I work on that none of us are perfect, and we're never going to be. Don't try to be perfect. You have to try to let the heart steer as much as possible, and you have to let God guide you as much as possible. So, like for me, I was walking, this was years before I really connected with God and really had my rebirth moment, where I started understanding his messages more clearly, kind of became fluent in that divine language. And that's what we're going for, is to be fluent in this divine language. So I kicked over a rock, and it had a huge piece of quartz, and it had a huge, beautiful garnet on it. And it was just looked like a ruby shining there. And that was the start of me. I was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never lived in a place that had gems and stuff like this. So that kind of kicked off so much for me. I was in the woods all the time looking for gems and minerals and cool rocks, and that really led me to so many more things out where I was always out there, because God knew I wasn't that observant. I wasn't going to pick up on the signs he was sending me. So he was sending me more clear signs to guide me there. And it took still way too long, but I made it. I'm just a slow learner and a big dumb idiot. But I made it. And you know what? That garnet, as I mentioned in another video, it was what Noah used on the ark. And he had a lantern that was made of one big garnet, and that garnet would glow and guide his way. And that doesn't make much sense if you think about it in literal terms, but in spiritual terms, in the wisdom of the Bible and not the actual words of the Bible. Because remember, we're extracting wisdom from everything that we can. So that garnet was spiritual guidance, and that's what I needed. And that's exactly where I found that first garnet, was exactly where God came to me in the form of a white-tailed doe that came out of the woods and walked with me for, that whole hike that I had that day, and just walked beside me like it was my pet. And that was the clearest sign I could have ever gotten. And that was because I let my mind go, and I let my heart go into whatever curiosity that it saw. Now, how does this help us clean up this broken life that we've made or that we've been dealt? That's a great question. And as I've said, God grants you that inner peace. And once you start relying on him to guide you and not your ego, or at least have your heart guide you until, like I said, until you've gotten comfortable with understanding God's messages. So you have something positive guiding you. You start treating others with kindness and compassion, and you start dealing your whole life. See it through a new lens. See it through the lens of your heart and not your ego. And then you're always on the lookout for those messages from God. Eventually it's going to, right in the beginning it might seem so difficult and so useless, but eventually it will become so easy. It's like a second nature. It's like learning a language. When you learn a new language, all of a sudden it just clicks. And when it clicks, then you're suddenly speaking a new fluent language, when before you were stammering through the words, and could barely get anything out. And now you've got this divine language. And that is when the real change happens, because that is when you know that God has you now, because you're starting to see, hey, he is sending me these messages, and these messages are so just profound and amazing, and I don't have to have these worries and these fears and these anxieties anymore. I'm living as a free being, and I'm just here experiencing what I need to experience, and I'm searching for my purpose that I know God will show me, because now I speak his language. And as soon as you speak his language, well, then you're in the pros. You're not to Michael Jordan levels yet, but you're in the pros and you're getting there. And you can be to that level if you just put that time and effort in. So don't stop there. Once you're in the pros, then you train even harder. Then you make your entire life about looking for what God wants you to do. You're going to be reading many more. You're going to be sitting reading the Bible. You're going to be looking at other ancient texts from maybe other religions. You're going to be looking through philosophies, and you're going to be sitting there saying, hey, well, God's kind of making me focus on Stoicism, and the Stoicism kind of seems like it might help me in these ways, and kind of learning to live in the present, because that's what you have to do. Without that fear, that guilt and anxiety, you live in the present, and you let God guide you. At first you let your heart guide you, but then you let God guide you whenever you've connected with Him. And then you're going to go exactly where you need to go. And yes, those pieces are still going to be broken that you've broken in the past. But you have a completely new life. You're a new person now. You've been reborn. And if the people that you've hurt, that, like, let's say you've, like in the comments, if you've hurt your girlfriend and you want her back, and you're not going to sit there and beg her to come back or show her, look, I'll work so hard. No, you're going to say, I'm so sorry that I hurt you. I hope that you can please forgive me. And I want to let you know that I'm going to do my best to live my life as Jesus would. I'm not going to ever be Jesus or even close, but I'm going to try to live my life that way. And you know what? When they see that you are so positive about everything, because that's one thing too, you have to, as you're writing these things down that you've taken note of during the day when looking for God, try to write down 2 or 3 positive things, beautiful things that you've seen that day that you're thankful for. Something that's not just your family all the time. If you're thankful for your family, that's great. But try to find, I saw a beautiful sunset today, or, I helped an old lady across the street, or whatever. Try to write those down, and those things compound. And it is like a ripple, because darkness spreads quickly. And that fear, anxiety, and guilt do nothing but spread darkness to you. They make you hate yourself. And when you hate yourself, you start projecting that to others. So you're going to gather all of these things and this positivity, and you're going to put it in one big package. And you're going to live your life this way. Your whole life will be about living God's will, walking in Jesus' light. You're going to not really put anything above that at all. Even if you have kids, you don't put them above that, because they benefit from you being who God wants you to be. Because God will show you how to take care of your children, how to be a loving husband or boyfriend or wife or girlfriend. They will teach you to be everything you're supposed to be. And unfortunately, there's going to be some things that you're not supposed to be, but it's not going to hurt that bad, because as I said before, if He wants you to live on the street as a poor man, to go help homeless people and show them, hey, you can still be happy in your life. Look at me, I'm homeless too, and I'm so happy. And it's probably not going to be that extreme. I'm telling you that. But I mean, I don't know God's plan, and neither do you. That's the point. He's going to put you in these crazy situations sometimes, because maybe He knows that you're the only one who can deal with it, with help from Him, obviously. So you're going to be in these wild situations, and it's all going to be just like the greatest thing to you, because it's like watching the greatest story ever told as it goes, and it just doesn't end until your life is over, and then it's on to the next great story. It is such a change, and this is how you fix this broken life. You put it together piece by piece by not worrying about what you've broken. Obviously, you make amends for whatever you need to, and you repent for whatever horrible sin you've made, but you don't let that hang you. Even if you'd murdered somebody, and if you were, and then all of a sudden God comes to you and tells you, now you're going to live a life of my choosing and not yours. You don't sit there and just whip yourself every day. Say, oh my God, I'm such a bad person. Of course, if you've done something that bad, then you're going to go to jail. You're going to turn yourself in once you've found God, because that's what He's going to tell you to do, almost certainly. But what I'm saying is that was an extreme case, obviously. You're going to live your life. It's going to be a completely different person. You're not going to know the person you're going to be, and you're not going to know that level of joy and happiness would even exist. I know that I've rambled on for so long, and I'm sorry about that. I probably didn't even read all. I just started going on my own tangent, but this is something I really want to help people with, but I really do think that this method of connecting with God and going out into nature and finding His words, and like I said, it's not just nature. Your entire life is a message from Him in different ways, and you may see it in the eyes of a pet. You may see it. You may hear it on the radio. You may see it on the TV. All these things to start steering your life in positive directions, and focus on living in the present. Focus on living positive, and letting your heart take the wheel until you've got God taking the wheel, the Holy Spirit filling you up. And that's all I got for tonight. I'm going to do a lot more about this, and hopefully it'll be a little bit more coherent. But this was just kind of like a last second thing I threw together, because I literally could not put half an hour worth of words into a comment reply. So please, if you have any questions, or if you need any help yourself, I will do my best to help you. I'm not saying that I'll have the answers, because if God doesn't tell me, then I don't know either. Like I said, I'm just a big dumb idiot. And I'm the happiest big dumb idiot you'll ever see. Okay, until next time, God bless.